As the ghettos and concentration camps across Europe became inadequate to deal with the sheer amount of prisoners, leading Nazis met at Wannsee in Germany to discuss the final solution to the Jewish problem. It was decided that all Jews would be sent to extermination camps. The biggest of these was in a small Polish town called Auschwitz. Initially, the prisoners were held in barracks. Then a new camp was created with one purpose only: the extermination of all of Europe's Jews. The Germans renamed the camp Auschwitz. These are the tracks that brought in the prisoners from all over Europe. The Germans began building Auschwitz II Birkenau in 1941. Before then, this was all people's homes. People lived here and they were expelled. They were thrown out of their homes and their homes were demolished. This section was for male prisoners who were quarantined on arrival. The camp split into sections, so you can see just how many barracks there are. Each one would house about 400 prisoners, and there are 18 of these barracks in this section of the camp. And this section of the camp was a family camp for Jews arriving from Terezin. The section beyond this was for Jewish women from Hungary. And then you had a men's camp, and then a family camp for gypsies, then a men's hospital camp. This is where the journey would end for the prisoners. And this is what they would arrive in. So they would have been inside here, as I said, sometimes for days. No food, no water, very little air to breathe, no toilets. SS officers beating them as they're getting out, dogs attacking them. They would then be separated into two lines. Women and children in one line, men in the other. And round about here, there would be a table where it would be decided whether they were fit enough to work or whether they would be sent straight to the gas chambers. It's estimated that over 75% of all people that arrived at Auschwitz were sent directly to the gas chambers. So as the Jews were getting off the train, they would have looked down here, and on either side were two gas chambers and crematorium. So they would have seen the chimneys, the smoke coming out. They would have known what they were. There had been rumours about gas chambers and crematoriums in extermination camps. Some people didn't believe it. I think some people probably chose not to believe it. But getting off the train and then seeing it with your own eyes, it was said that there is only one way to get out of Auschwitz, and that would be through the gas chambers and crematorium. There were 5 gas chambers and crematorium, each with the capacity to kill 5,000 people in a 24-hour period, so 25,000 people a day. They were blown up in 1945 by the Nazis, shortly before their camp was liberated by the Russians. This would be the gas chambers. So when making this drainage ditch, 7 prisoners managed to get away. They managed to escape. The Nazis shot 20 other prisoners from their unit and sent another 300 directly to the gas chambers. This is the second of the gas chambers and crematorium. So the unburned bones of the victims were ground up and thrown into the Vistula River. Traces of human ashes can still be found today in the vicinity of the crematorium. These brick barracks were actually made using the bricks of all the houses that the Germans destroyed in order to build a camp here. Right, one of the barracks is actually open, so you can have a walk around and see how people lived. Each one of these barracks, and you can see there are lots of them, housed about 800 people. So let's take a look. So here, this would be the sleeping space for usually about 6 to 8 people. They would share one thin sheet. Imagine that being your bed, sharing it with 7 other people, strangers. Just can't comprehend just how awful it must have been to have been sent here. Not only were the living conditions absolutely terrible, but the prisoners would spend every second knowing that it could be their last. If they weren't killed by the guards or sent to the gas chambers, then they'd either die of disease or starvation. So each barrack has 180 of these spaces. There's 3 in each one, and there's 60 blocks. And yeah, sometimes there'd be 6 or 7 people in each one. So this one's just like the others. There's nothing different about it other than this was the children's barrack. If you can imagine how terrible this must have been for people, and just imagine what it was like for children. Of course, the vast majority of children that arrived at Auschwitz were sent straight to the gas chambers. Well, just when you think it can't get any worse. So this building was used specifically for killing newborn babies and their mothers by injection. So this whole section of the concentration camp from 1943 onwards was the women's section, and these barracks here were known as the death barracks. because this is where women were sent who had been deemed unfit for work and were basically waiting to be sent to the gas chambers. And in here they wouldn't be given any water or food. Many of them died before they even got there. And when the barracks were full, prisoners would be sent here. They would stay here. This is where they would sleep. This is where there used to be a wooden barrack, and in 1944 more than 200 Jewish children between the ages of 2 and 16 were kept as prisoners. Just saying that, a 2-year-old kept as a prisoner. Mainly twins, and they were used in medical experiments by the SS doctor Josef Mengele. And Mengele performed horrific experiments on children in the camp. He was basically allowed to do what he wanted without any consideration for ethics or humanity. This is where hatred leads. Between 1.1 and 1.3 million people, men, women, children, were murdered at Auschwitz. Their only crime was belonging to what the Nazis considered to be an inferior race. The majority of them Jewish, but also gypsies, homosexuals, Slavs, political opponents to the Nazi regime. The majority of them were sent from concentration camps and ghettos from across Europe on their final journey to Auschwitz.